One of the biggest challenges for any organization is properly communicating with your team. And I mean your internal team, the people that you employ that are in your business. And we need to be able to communicate with them to ensure that we've got everyone knows the right set of policies. If there's any calendars, events coming up, like maybe there's public holidays or other special events that are coming along. Or perhaps it's news that the organization is merging with another organization, or that you're acquiring another company, or maybe there's some various specific product news or just changes in processes and practices that might be needed to be able to communicate it with your team. And this is important for quality, compliance, and even cultural reasons within your organization. Now, for smaller organizations that are all co-located, this generally isn't such a big problem because you'll talk to each other on a regular basis. You'll meet in the kitchen or the office, etc., on at least 2 to 3 times a week, where you'll actually commingle. You'll have conversations. Now, if your organization is larger and more geographically dispersed, or even if you all work from home or remotely, then chances are face-to-face meetings are very rare. So how do we communicate with each other in that manner? Now, we've got telephones. That's the traditional way, or we've got email, and now we've got chat tools like WhatsApp and Teams and even Zoom, etc., for video calls as well. So we've got all these different communication messages. But if we boil this back to Microsoft 365 and the tools and the channels to be able to communicate with people, what options do we have? And even better, how do we communicate in such a way that the message isn't lost for those people that don't happen to be part of that call at that time? All right. So imagine the reply to all emails, for example, and then you have a new starter that starts 2 or 3 months later, that particular communication was very important for them to know what policies and procedures have been communicated to the organization. How does that not get lost and make sure it's available well beyond the moment that it was actually sent or published? So let's dive in and have a look at the various ways we can find out what's going on in our organization, what our team are up to, but more importantly, how we can communicate with others. And there's lots and lots of different options, and you have to work out and find the one that works best for you and your team. So let's dive in. The first thing I want to talk about is office.com. This is where we start with everything, right? All your apps, all your services, all the files, everything you've been working on are all accessible from here. Now, this is a demo client. I'm logged on by a fictitious person by the name of Patty. So you can see that there's not a lot going on in here. So I'm going to quickly jump across into my own tenant. And you can see here that there's obviously a lot more going on. There's lots of different files, etc. But also I can see all the different content. People are sending me emails with attachments. There's meetings, file attachments here as well, any local files, and any other files that might be strewn throughout my environment. This is great. I can find stuff, right? Literally had a client the other day that couldn't find a file. Turns out he dropped it into his OneDrive and didn't realize. And through this, we were able to find the file he was looking for. But what's going on with my colleagues? Right? From here, I can actually see what's going on with other people. And these are both internal and external people, as well as my own team, and I can follow each person, right? And then I can have different activities. So any activity they have will pop up into my feed. I can stay on top of things, of information or emails that have been sent to me that I might have missed. This even comes from notifications or files that I've been editing, as well as Teams meetings and chats and such like as well. Various insights from meetings. So anything where we've got transcriptions, we can search through this, we can review the videos, etc. As well as my wider network. Now, I've only just started following people here, so there'll be insights as things come up, birthdays, work anniversaries, etc. but also news. So not only news from internal publications, but also I subscribe to some industry news. And I can keep track of what's going on all within the confines of the Microsoft 365 environment. So this is quite useful. And when you start using news inside of SharePoint, which we'll get to in a moment, you'll start to see how this can come to life. I can also manage my network, see who's in my network, etc. And this also, you'll see here, it talks about it following and synchronized between your feed and Viva Engage. And we'll talk about Viva Engage in just a moment. So back to our demo tenant. How do we communicate with people? So what we've just talked about at the moment is through the feed in terms of what's happening. This is a way that you as an individual can keep on top of what's going on in your world, right? What's happening with your team, what's happening with you, what's happening with other people that you may work with or interact with, right? But how, as a business leader, do I communicate with my team and send information out to others? Now, the first thing and the most default choice is obviously good old email. Why? Because it's been around for most people their entire working careers. Right? It's the standard de facto go-to tool to be able to send a message to someone with a pretty good chance of it actually getting to them. And it doesn't matter whether they're internal or external, we use email for this for a lot. Now, most of my communications is external, and email is the best and most consistent tool regardless. Everyone's got an email address. It's just a standard for today. Not everyone, for example, will be in Microsoft Teams. Not everyone's going to be have access in Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or even Slack. Not everyone has that, right? So how do we communicate? We use email. And the typical thing is that we can send to people, but not only can we send to individuals, but we can also send to groups. Now, we have various groups set up within this demo tenant, and there's one here called All Company, and I can send that to that group. I don't have to know who's in there. I just send it to everyone. That's generally how this one works. I can send a message. And off it goes. Whoop, if I can actually spell. And we send. Email works as email does. Now, the way the groups works in here is there's actually a group system that's where these emails should go to. And it actually also should go to the individuals involved. Now, there's only a few people that are actually in that group, so we'll have to log in on those to see how that works. But you get the point, right? We can send emails. The problem with email is if you forget to add someone to the list, they're not included. They're not aware of this unless someone else goes, oh, I should include Joe, who's just started with us because they're not in the list, and then forward to that person. And then as time goes on, 3 or 4 months down the track, another person starts. That person's not going to be included in this conversation, right? Because it's forgotten about. But it could be key policy changes that we need to be able to communicate. So email's good, but only for very specific use cases. So how else can we get information to people that's more long term? So our other option is to use what we call systems hubs, right? We generally build system hubs for organizations where they can share not only their policies and procedures, and we build that in via a variety of pages with videos and images and other things, even PDF documents and other things that they can download that shows people how to do things, right? So it's about systemizing your business. But the other thing that can be done is we can actually use it to add news. Now you'll see here that we've got Systems Hub listed above the particular item here, so the particular news items. Now, The interesting thing about how SharePoint works is we can actually group things together in what's known as a SharePoint hub, not to be confused with a system hub. And what that is it's a collection of SharePoint sites that are all interconnect. One is considered the master, and everything else is connected to that. So imagine an organization that's quite large with multiple divisions. You've got a sales division, you've got a marketing division, you've got a operations or an engineering division, and you've got a support division, right? As well as maybe perhaps finance and services and other things. So all of these different divisions could have their own sites. Now, the beauty of having their own sites is we can set security to say that only members of that particular team or those particular divisions have access to those sites. But we can also publish that information to make it available as a news item, and then through a very special web part on here, it will be presented on the main site, right? In this case, the hub. What that means is that if I'm part of, say, the engineering division, someone in engineering, the head of engineering, can publish a news article, and I'll show you in a moment how that works, that appears on the engineering site, but also a copy of it is presented here. However, if someone viewing this site is not part of the engineering team, they won't see that article. So it's very specific depending on who has access. However, I don't have to go to engineering to see it because it's in this location, right? It's all in one location, and I can get feeds, if you like, from all different organizations. Now, this does rely on people coming to this site to see what's going on, right? And we can see in here that there's a nice article that's been created, and cool, we can read about this. Now, this is based on an email newsletter template. So normally when we create a new item, we go and create a new post. We can create just a blank news, a status update, a process, etc. and events, or we can just do a standard page. These 6 up here are designed specifically for email, right? They're actually designed that we create a post that is been engineered and architected so that you can actually send it as an email message as well. So we talked about email getting lost in the weeds, but now we're getting the best of both worlds. We can send a status update, for example. So I'm just going to send this one about some, I'm just going to call this a status update published by me. You can change this because I'm a owner of this, so I can set someone else's name in here if I wish. And it's given you a bit of an example of what you could create in terms of creating an effective status update. All you need to do is fill this out with your own content. You can add in different widgets and off we go. Now, I can actually say post and share. Now, what's that going to do? It's going to post the news article on the SharePoint site so that people coming after this particular update is sent out that start with the organization in a week or 4 weeks or a year's time will have access to this particular status update. We've got a record of that we can go and see that this was mentioned. But when I hit here, it's going to pop up with a email template. So I'm just going to send this to myself just so that we can see what's going on. Now, interestingly enough, the way these particular status updates work, right? So these particular emails, I can only send to an internal recipient. You can get around that by creating contacts within your environment that happen to forward this externally. But for the most part, this is designed for internal. But there's a neat little feature here in that you can forward this externally, and any images that are posted here will be made available for that external recipient. They don't have to log in, it just works. Okay, even if they're not part of the organization. Now, there might be a slight risk in terms of data loss we need to consider for this. So we just need to ensure that we set certain policies that block the ability to forward these types of messages. However, for most people, it's not an issue, right? So I can send it either as a link or I can just send it. Now, I'm going to send it as this. Why do I want to send it in this manner? Because I want people to read it, right? If you send it as a link, then they have to click on it, log in, and to be able to go and view the particular item. So I'm going to say send. When I send this, in a few moments, this should pop up here in my email. I'll just see if I can force that to sync. Here we go. Here's the email, and this is what it looks like when it's sent as an email. So we've got this status update page that's here. It's got information about this, and people can comment on here. So we get feedback. People can like it. They can comment. They can feed. They can save it for later, right? They can view, see how popular it is. If I come back here to the home site, I can actually see there's the status update. You'll see these other ones have started to move down. This one's getting priority. Now we can actually promote certain ones. So for example, if this one here is more important, I can change it to make it a promoted link, or then take over this space. But the point being is that I can get this message out using the traditional email method that people are comfortable with, but I've now combined it with a news post. So instead of sending that status update just in email, if we switch and just send it as a post from SharePoint, we're now capturing not only the historical version of it for future people to understand what's going on, but also we're sending a much richer and much more engaging email message to our team than just standard boring text. So that's how we can take it that little bit next level from email. So we're combining posts and email. And so this is a great way to go and explore. If you don't have a system hub, it's really easy to create. Basically, we generally set it as the default location. So the name of your tenancy.sharepoint.com. That's it, right? And then there's some stuff you do in the back end for SharePoint to turn it into a hub to be able to then connect multiple sites to it. That's where you get this navigation, and you can get this global navigation happening as well. So I can access everything from any SharePoint site directly from here. I can also see any sites that I might be interested in, but also those news articles are available at at my fingertips. So even if I'm in another SharePoint site somewhere else within the environment, this navigation on the left appears there. So I can see any news updates at any time. I can even access any recent files from anywhere. I don't have to go anywhere. It's right there in a SharePoint site within your environment. Any lists that might have been created, I don't have any, but also I can create stuff from here. So that news post where I came back to the page and had to find the site, I just go to any SharePoint site, go news post, and I can say which site I want to create it, and off I go. It's that simple. So get involved, start doing news posts instead of sending emails, right? Because you're going to do both. The next way, and I wanted to cover this is why this is going to be a longer video, is how do we use Teams, right? Most of you and most of my clients are busy using chat. They're using group chat, and look, it's kind of cool, but it's a massive stream of consciousness, and anything more than a couple of days, depending on how many people are in that group chat, gets lost. It just scrolls up the top and you never see it again, right? And to go and search and find it takes a while. Search does work, but to go scrolling back to find the particular message, it gets lost. And if you've got multiple conversations happening at the same time, anyone being in a really busy WhatsApp group, yeah, you know what I mean. You lose the important messages really, really fast. There's ways of solving that. You can at people to get their attention, which means that you can use activity right? So I'll just move this back up here. So you can use the activity to understand anything where you've been mentioned or any unread messages, etc. But yeah, it's very, very fast for you to get lost in the woods, if you like. Yeah, there's just so much going on. It's a stream of consciousness. Um, you can reply to individual messages and create threads, but it gets unwieldy very, very fast. Now, let's imagine you've got a larger team that's geographically dispersed. How do we take advantage of that? How do we send out these messages to these people so that they know, or we need to get them to do something or take some action? There's a way of solving that, still using Teams. Now, news is great when there's something more formal that you want to send out. But what happens if it's a little bit less formal? And you just need to get a quick message out to say, hey, we're doing some updates this weekend, etc. I just want everyone to know these are the things that are going to impact you, right? For that, we use Teams. And when in a team, you'll see that there's a general channel for each team. Now, Teams is sort of an analog for the old messaging boards that we used to use many years ago, back when I had hair, right? So you had a general channel, which is where you share anything. It's just no particular topic. And then we create other channels. In this case, we've got a US sales team with a general channel and a sales east and a sales west. So we've got the sales team itself together, but we've separated conversations out based on their geographical location. So we can have separate areas to separate that conversation. Now, you can use private channels if you want. And a private channel basically means that everyone's involved in the US sales team, but we want to try to keep the sales east and west secret from those who aren't in those particular regions, right? So we use a private channel for that. The rules for private channel basically means you need to be part of the team and then added to the channel. There are reasons why you would use this, but for most part, we try to recommend to clients to keep it open as much as possible. You'll see here there's another project team down here, and there's obviously different streams of activities going on between these teams. And when we go into each of these teams, you can see that we can have the same conversations. Now, these guys haven't really been followed the rules because they're replying as a new post. The general rule is that we create a brand new post. Exciting news, etc., and we post that, and you've got all these rich text. You can add in code snippets, quotes, and tables, and put attachments, and a whole bunch of other things in here. So we can post that away. Now, instead of actually replying as a new post, which creates a new topic within the channel, it is recommended that we actually reply to that particular topic. Why? Because then it collapses it down into threaded conversations. Everyone is now talking about this demo post. And all we have to do, we don't have to, it's a much simpler box. It's just a message. So I'm going to send this, and you'll see that what we're getting is we're getting a response to that. And then people can go and then reply to this, and we get those threaded conversations. So let's say that there's a new update, or there's a new branding or something that we want to talk about and share with the team, then we can actually share that, and then everyone can reply to that topic. And over time, it starts to get a little bit more easier to read because now it's in context. And it's much easier to go back up and see those previous messages than it is a 3,000 message long group chat. These, when there's lots of replies to a particular item, they start collapsing down on themselves. So it's much easier for you to sort of get around what's actually going on within those teams. So if you're using group chat today and there's lots of conversations and there's lots of participants all within your own organization, and that's the caveat. If they're external people that are also in the group chat, you kind of, well, you don't have much luck there. It's very hard to bring them into this conversation. It can be done, but it's a pain. stick with group chats. It's much simpler, it's much easier. But if you've got an internal team where you need to collaborate and share information, this includes files and all sorts of other stuff. So you can just attach your files and people can start working on that file right from the post. Right? So use a post. This is like a message board in your shared area to be able to communicate that information. And it's open to everyone. Whereas the news articles may not be open to everyone because of various policies within your organization. So this is for everyone to be able to share big announcements or other things with the wider team. And the advantage here is, unlike email, you don't have to remember to include people. Everyone who's included now and in the future will be able to read and see that message. Cool. Next one we want to go and talk about is Viva Engage. Who here likes Facebook or LinkedIn or any other social media? Yeah, right? Viva Engage is the old Yammer network. Now, Viva Engage sort of is one of those communications tools that you either love or you hate. I've seen Viva Engage used very, very well, but it typically works with larger organizations where most people in the organization don't really know each other or interact with each other. So if you've got a team of 50, 100, 300 staff all scattered across the country, or even 10,000, then Viva Engage is probably going to be your tool of choice. The reason for this is we can create lots of groups, like Facebook groups, so that other people can join in on those conversations. So you can have social boards for like social clubs, or maybe there's a sporting team, or a bunch of people who are interested in baseball or soccer, etc., World Cup, or Tour de France for cycling, etc. And they can have these social conversations happening in an environment that's sort of, like social media. It works in the same way. We can ask questions and discussions. We can even create tech support boards in here for this. Now, you can invite guests into Viva Engage, but they do need to be Microsoft licensed users, and it gets tricky fast in terms of trying to build a group in here. Trust me, I've tried. It works brilliantly for a large internal organization. The advantage of Viva Engage is that we can actually also access it from here. I think I've got it in here. Viva Insights. Nope. Let's try it. Engage. There we are. So we can have access to Viva Engage directly from within Teams. So I can get access to this in the same manner. I can actually see any messages that of myself, any activity. I can create stories. Everyone loves sharing stories of what's going on. So if you're one of those social people that likes sharing what's going on in your life or what's going on in the world, maybe you're the CEO of the organization and you want to share what's going on and you're not really sure who's interested or not. So you can use this to be able to share those particular stories of what's going on. But you can also post into various groups, etc. And so there's various messages, etc., that we can post in here as well. So this is that message that I sent. So that email, from email, it actually sent an email to a Yammer board or a Viva Engage board. So you can see here, this is a test message, it's an email blast, and everyone can respond. So I didn't actually have to go into Viva Engage to share that insight. I could have forwarded an email to this location and ended up with a similar result, right? And the email would be copied in here. Here's one here that I sent as a link to that news article that I created the other day. Similar sort of things. Now, it's like social media. I can create comments. I can add people to these comments. I can put in your animated GIFs and add videos, add attachments, etc. I can even pin or edit or close these conversations if I'm the owner of those conversations. It's just like a social media post on either LinkedIn or Facebook. It works exactly the same way, right? So if you're used to that sort of environment, it works similarly. there's also an app for it, right? So you can have it on your phone so you can keep engaged with what's going on. Now, Viva Engage, in my mind, is a great social communication tool that you could use for your organization. And typically, it only works with larger networks. As I said, if you've got 50 or more staff, then Viva Engage may be a great tool for you, especially if you're social and you want to break away the social conversations that are happening inside of teams to sort of put them in a more social communications channel that people can opt in and opt out and they don't feel embarrassed to do so. So typically your social clubs, your sporting clubs and other sports interests and stuff, this is where I would recommend putting that. But also maybe the marketing department or particular sales channels, etc., or an events coordinator may want to actually use Viva Engage to be able to engage people within your organization. Again, it's a social network rather than a business tool. And you can set policies around that to say, social conversations, please go and create a community inside of Viva Engage. That's where we encourage you to create it. For just group chat and business related conversations, please keep that on Teams. Now, there's no reason you can't use Viva Engage for those more structured conversations for projects and such like. But this is where we see the line between how you want to better communicate with each other. So that's really the tools that we've got. We've got obviously the feed for you to keep track of what's going on. We've got, which is on office.com. We've got traditional email. We've got SharePoint to be able to share status updates and news articles. We can post news posts, etc. But we can post news posts that are designed for email, so we can also include email recipients. So for those people who don't go and visit your website or your intranet, they still are part of the organization. This works if there's got larger organizations and you need to be able to share lots of information or you want to share lots of updates around what's going on. But if you've also built out a systems hub in terms of that particular structure, this is going to work well for you. Obviously, we've got Teams. And look, there's nothing wrong with chat. But generally speaking, chat between small groups works well. But if you've got a larger team or a larger group, it is better to switch across into Teams for those conversations, especially if you're sharing more pertinent information that needs to be made available not only to your current staff but future staff. So if you're making policy changes or here's the new document for blah, it is best to put it into a team. The reason, and here's the prime reason, if you're sharing files and such like, when you share with OneDrive, it stays in your OneDrive. Now, if you're no longer with the organization and your OneDrive and your account is deleted, you lose that data. So that's a big thing you need to be mindful of. If it's a policy document that needs to be retained for a longer period of time and you share it as a post, it goes into the team, which is owned by the team, not an individual, right? So it outlives you. Your name will still be on it, but it outlives your involvement within the organization. Really, really important, that particular point. The other thing, advantage of difference between group conversations and group chats versus a team post, etc., is that it's threaded. You can reply to a particular topic and much, much more richer conversations. The other thing I'd like to be able to point out on these posts, we can switch down here to change it to an announcement style. So you actually have a big, bold heading with images, etc., to grab attention. There's also a range of different apps that we can use, all the third-party apps, etc., that can use to be able to send this. Now, one of my favorites is Praise. Teams are really good for praise. This gives you and your team the ability to send praise to anyone within your team. When you post it in a Teams channel, right, that outlives everything. So that remains there. If it goes into a chat, not everyone sees it. The advantage of praise is that others see that recognition, not just you sending that praise and they're going, oh yeah, my boss said something good about me, or my colleague thought I did an awesome job. But it's hidden, no one else sees it. So share your praise in a team, and so that everyone, current and future, will be able to see that praise. And the other advantage is when we go into Viva Insights, you can actually see any praise that you've sent and received. So you can actually get a collation of that. And let's say you're coming up for your annual review and you're an employee, or even if you're reviewing an employee as the business owner or manager, right? You can actually go through and review, and that person can go onto their own Viva Insights and see how much praise has been sent in their general direction. And they can use that and show, hey, people are recognizing the good work that I'm doing. It might be useful for your evaluation, it may not, but I really love praise, so take advantage of it. Post it in a channel. Don't post it in a group chat, it gets lost. And then finally, we've got Viva Engage. And this is your social network. Remember, social network. So it's your social network within your organization. So it's all well and good to have these social conversations out on Facebook and LinkedIn, but it's also a great place to get that culture, those social conversations, those like-minded peoples to be able to form communities, work together, share ideas, share insights. You may have a group of people that have the same skill set that work across diverse teams and diverse geographic locations in your organization, and this gives them a great place to be able to share, collaborate, and work together on that. And otherwise have general chit chat that doesn't really belong in the more professional teams space. Wow, that was a lot of content, and this is a long video. So if you're still here, thank you very much for watching. I hope you had got some value out of that. I wanted to sort of cover off as much as I possibly could about the various communication channels and reasons why you would want to use, Viva Engage over email versus posts, etc. There's lots of different ways that you communicate with people. But if you start setting some ground rules and some policies of how you communicate with, why you use, and use a little bit more intention around that, and keep the boundaries loose-ish, but also have some definition around that, then you and your organization is really going to grow and be better engaged with each other. Ha, like the pun there. And people can work together more effectively. And we're not talking about just being able to communicate with the people that are in your organization today. We're talking about the people that are yet to come, the people that you haven't hired yet, the people that are going to come into your organization and make a huge difference and help your organization grow and become the business that you want it to become. So, hope you found that useful and insightful. And yeah, drop in the comments. Tell me, which bits did you like? Which tools are you using? And have you used the news posts so you can send emails to make your emails look even cooler? Anyway, bye for now.